Hello friends and welcome back to my channel. Today I am going to talk about clairaudience or clear hearing. I'm continuing with my series about the main psychic senses. I think these are so helpful to learn about as you're really learning to access your intuition because everybody is intuitive, everybody is psychic. It's just about recognizing how it's coming through for you and then putting some more energy and intention into utilizing that muscle a bit more. Like any muscle, we need to use it to really build it, right? To make it stronger. And for a lot of people, their intuition is there. It's just gotten really quiet. It's not as clear. So the key piece is identifying it and really starting to understand what is your unique spiritual language, how are messages coming in most strongly for you, and then really focusing on that psychic sense and working with it more, and more of the others often will open up on that path as well. So like I said, we're going to talk about clairaudience today. And what I'll say is that if you do really want to open up your psychic senses, I highly recommend checking out my psychic development course. It is everything I wish I had all in one place when I was on the journey of developing my psychic gifts. And I remember Googling and trying to find books, and I just really wasn't satisfied with what I was finding. And so I built that course because it was everything that really, really helped me in terms of invocations and practices. I talk about protecting your energy and discerning different frequencies, using your different psychic gifts. There are activations in there as well. And so I really just created the program that I wish I had. It's totally self-paced. And if you are looking to really develop your intuitive gifts and use them safely and responsibly and be precise, because that's the thing. A lot of people I'll find will have their intuition open, but it's not precise. And if it's not precise, the information really isn't that valuable, right? But this is one of the biggest gifts we naturally have. And to me, if you're not tapping into your intuitive gifts, you're kind of just, it's like having a cheat sheet that you're just not looking at. And there's nothing wrong with using it. So why wouldn't you, right? So if you're like me and you like to make things happen and create positive shift in your life, in the lives of people around you, I feel like this is a must-have tool, especially if you're a high achiever, So check out my psychic development course if you are interested in that, and if it resonates with you. I love that course very much. And also the monthly membership, the Channel Collective, is another great way to start to really tune into your intuition and do a lot of the underlying root cause work that unblocks our intuition, because really the more personal development work you do, the more shadow work you do, the more you heal your relationship with the masculine and the feminine, and you rewire your brain, your intuition really comes online. So that's my little spiel there. So let's talk about clairaudience, clear hearing. I love helping people recognize how this is showing up for them, because it is more common than you think. It is more common than you think. So clairaudience, clear hearing, I think the way that most people think that this pops up is like, I'm sitting here and I'm hearing this voice next to me. It's like an invisible person. I'm hearing a loud voice, right? Or you see in movies, it's like somebody is having this moment and the voice of God speaks down from above, or they hear this booming voice around them, right? And that might happen sometimes. That has happened a number of times for me in my life, but that's not the predominant way that my clairaudience comes in. That has only happened big, intense moments. That's not the main way my clairaudience comes through. And for most people, that's not how it comes through. So it might come through as hearing a voice that you don't know who it's from, and it might sound like it's coming from outside you. It might sound like a whisper. For me, often when it's coming outside of me, it sounds like this sort of, it's like loud, but it's like a whisper, if that makes any sense. That's often how I hear it. I have heard a big booming voice before as well, a number of occasions. But the main way that it comes through for me and for most people, it's in their heads. And I'll often say this to clients if it's coming through in a session. I'll say, you're really clairaudient, like you can hear. And they're like, I don't hear anything outside of me. And I'm like, it sounds like your thoughts. So a lot of times people are getting these clairaudient messages and they think it's their thoughts. Okay. So it often sounds like a voice from in your head. And this voice might sound like your own. It might sound like your own voice, or it might sound like other voices, right? So for me personally, I would say most often the way people are experiencing their clairaudience is it's a voice that sounds like their own, which is why they're missing it. Sometimes that's true for me. For me personally, often it will sound different than me. It doesn't sound like me. And for me, it just depends on who is speaking. If it's my higher self, it will sound like me. If it's another being, it will sound different, and that's how I can identify who it is. But it can sound like it's coming from my head. So the way that I recognize that it's clairaudience, if it sounds like my own voice, there are a few things for me. And this is about just being aware. And then in that awareness, you start to attune to the subtle differences in the vibration and how it feels, how it sounds. So this is where you can also tune into how your body is feeling, right? So I might have a thought, right? I might have a message come through that sounds like my voice, but my whole body starts tingling. Oh, well, that was significant, right? For me, it comes through from a different place. So if I have a thought and I'm like, where did that come from? Where do I feel that? Where do I feel that? I'll just notice if my body is giving me any other signals where my body is lighting up, right? But for me, when it is my higher self, right, a download, it's coming from either like my crown. I'll feel like my crown is all lit up, or it will feel like it's coming from like kind of the back of my head base. It also might feel like it's in my heart space or my womb. So those are the places where I'm kind of looking. When it's a thought, it feels like it's coming from my frontal lobe. It feels like it's coming from up here. There's also often this energy of there's an energy underneath it where it might sound more fear-based, right? It might be my ego. So it might feel more fear-based or rushed. So what if I ask myself, is that coming from fear or love? That usually illuminates things, right? And I'll just have that awareness of like, was that my ego or my soul? And usually just asking that question, I just know. But it'll be sometimes a little louder and a little more intense. The way my intuition comes through when it's a download, when it's my higher self, it comes in quick, easily. There's no pushing, there's no forcing, there's no fear, there's no you gotta get out of here, right? It's just in a knowing, and the tone is a little bit different for me. So for me, it's like me if I was a goddess and divine and gentle and loving, and I'm like, well, it just has kind of like a slightly different tone, maybe like a bit of an accent there, so that's kind of a way that I can recognize it. It's like, oh, that's me, but like just sounds like a more, I don't know, it's my higher self me, right? I'm talking a little bit differently. The language might be different as well, right? So, for me, sometimes the messages will say like, will end with or call me like dear one or love, and the energy underneath it is just pure love, and it's never freak out energy or fear or pushing or forcing. It comes in, the emotion isn't first. So it's not emotion and then thought. It is thought, and then I might have an emotional reaction. And that is a subtlety that can be really helpful as well. Like if you see something, you felt afraid, and then something drops in, it's not so black and white, but that can be an indication of, oh, maybe that was my thought. When there are thoughts, we can usually trace back where they came from. Like I got from here to here to here. This is why. When it's just a download, it can feel very random. Like, whoa, where did that come from? Like I can't trace that back. All right. So it can sound like a voice in your head. It can sound like you. And this is where it's really cool to just be in the awareness of whenever you're having your thoughts, ask yourself, is that my ego or my soul? Right. You can also play with this and sit down and say, okay, how do I feel about XYZ? What do I need to know about XYZ? And just see what thoughts pop up. And then say, soul self, please tell me what I need to know about XYZ. And when you give that direction, allow your soul self to tell you. And it might sound like you, but this is a way where you can start to hear the difference. Having that compare and contrast where you're letting yourself think about something and then you are directing your soul self to come forward and tell you, and hearing what comes through at that point, right? So you can start to identify it through, maybe it sounds different in your head. Maybe the verbiage is a little bit different. The language that is being used is different. Maybe just the tone, the energy behind it is different. Maybe it's coming through in a different place. If you were to describe, where is this coming through? what part of my head, where in my body. So those are some key things to really pay attention to when you're looking to develop your clairaudience. With hearing, sometimes it sounds like a single voice, sometimes it can sound like multiple voices. So depending on who I'm channeling or who's coming through, sometimes it sounds like a group of voices, and sometimes it just sounds like one. Another way that what I also kind of include in clairaudience is just any time that we're hearing. So these are the signs we get through a loud noise. One that always happens over here is the train. This happens with my friends all the time, where we'll be talking about something and the train goes by and it's super loud, the horn or whatever. And it was like, whoa, that was a yes from the universe, right? Or there's a huge crash right as you say something. So notice if you're talking about something or thinking about something, all of a sudden there's this huge loud sound that you're hearing. It's like the universe being like, hello, banging the pots and pans so that you're listening. Like, that could be confirmation. It could be a no, tune into your body, or, ask and see what's coming up from that. But any sounds I will also include in this whole, clairaudience, whether or not it technically is, but just in the hearing realm, because we're getting intuitive information from what we hear as well. So notice like trains, bells, any crashes, any loud sounds, or even just like random sounds. This kept happening to me last night. I was thinking about some things and I was hearing these loud bangs out of nowhere. And then I was like, it sounds like it's above me. It sounds like it's next to me. And then I realized it was just my guides like banging something. And it was kind of weird. It was like, it clearly didn't have a physical source, but just pay attention to that. The other thing is, getting signs through music. So, if you're asking a question, you put an intention out there that you're looking for some type of answer, and you're walking through the grocery store and you just happen to actually listen to the music playing, and the line you hear is exactly what you needed to hear, right? Or you're thinking about something and your music shuffles, and then the song that comes on, you hear this line, you're like, whoa, that just hit differently, right? It hit me like, oh, right. So you're hearing that message. It can also be you're walking by someone on the street. This has happened to me so many times, and I walk by them and I just happen to like hear whatever one sentence that person said. And I was like, whoa, that was for me, right? Spirit is working through everybody all the time, so you never know how you're going to hear it or how it's going to come in. So those are some ways that I see hearing coming through for people. Just notice anything that you're hearing. And also if it sounds like thoughts in your head, but it has kind of a different undertone. And this is, a way that most people are experiencing clairaudience, because your higher self is always communicating with you. Your soul self is communicating with you. Most people just haven't yet learned to discern what's their ego, what are their thoughts versus what's my higher self, what's my soul self coming through. So discerning that is super, super powerful. And when you do that, you can start to notice there's maybe a little bit of a different undertone to those thoughts that you think are just your thoughts, So you're very powerful. Don't forget that. Ways that you can really start to develop this, when you're meditating, practice hearing in your head different sounds. So you could say, I want to hear a train, and maybe you hear a train go by. I want to hear the crashing of the waves, and you hear that. I want to hear a crying baby. I mean, probably don't want to hear that, but I'm just thinking of what are different sounds that you can ask to hear, and then practicing hearing them. So you're just building that muscle of like hearing it in your head, right? And then you can also ask your guides, just having practice time. Can you give me something that I can hear? What do I need to hear today? What do I need to hear today? And then just tune in with listening, right? Listening, and also just listening, but thinking about what's coming through in my head, right? Because if it's coming through as your thoughts. What I also like to do is play music, instrumental music, and just practice listening to one instrument at a time. So you're really like attuning, like, oh, I'm tuning into this specific frequency. And this is really powerful because it trains you to pick a certain vibration that you're keeping track of, and you're not so focused on the other ones, which is really key for really developing your gifts. Singing songs in your head, That's another way, anytime that you're using that muscle. So those are some key things that are just simple exercises that you can do. And what you want to do is, whenever you are trying to kind of instigate your hearing, right? I like to ask out loud for things, so I want to use the same sense to open it up. So, okay, if I am opening up my clairvoyance, my clear seeing, I'm going to be using visuals to do that. But if I want to be hearing more things, I'm talking out loud and like having a conversation with my guides, right? Because I'm kind of using that same sense. The same thing with, if I'm turning on my hearing, I hear a door open, right? Or the classic. This is the classic. Remember that sound from AIM from AIM or AOL back in the day. AIM, where somebody came online or they left and it was like that creaky door. And I know that sounds so well, right? Of somebody coming online, that door opening and then it closing. I can hear it in my head, right? So practicing that, right? That's all building that muscle. And then just becoming aware, you can start to write this down and just ask a question and say, soul self, please come through, and then listen to your thoughts and write them down and maybe start to discern, what here was really my soul and what wasn't. But the more you practice like hearing things in your head, repeating things back in your head, singing songs in your head, listening to your thoughts, and hearing certain sounds, right? The same way you would visualize something, you're practicing like hearing it. That starts to build that muscle. So I hope this was helpful with learning about clairaudience and clear hearing, and I'm sure that people watching this are probably realizing, oh wait, maybe I'm more psychic than I think. Yeah, you are. A lot of those thoughts are actually downloads, so there you go. So just takes practice in utilizing that muscle. Again, if this was helpful and you really want to go deep into developing your psychic senses, check out my psychic development course. I will link that below. It's all on my website, christinathechannel.com/courses. And I also recommend checking out the membership, the Channel Collective, because we do some intuitive practice in there as well. And that is a lot of the underlying personal development, energetic work to really open up your intuitive gifts as well. So if this was helpful, hit the thumbs up button, leave a comment below and let me know what you realized or how your clairaudience comes through. Would love to hear it. Maybe share this with someone in your life if you think they would find it helpful as well. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button and the notification bell if you haven't already, so that you never miss a future video. So that's going to be it for today. I hope this was helpful. I'm sending you lots of love, and I will see you in the next video.